Hello, Dr. Cath here again, and today we've got a bit of a celebration of Shropshire. Shropshire's an absolutely marvellous county. I was born at the foot of the Wrekin, the foot of the Arkle, in what was Wellington then, before they invented Telford, and I've lived in Shropshire and on the border of Shropshire almost all my life. Even when I was away working, my family home was there, and now I've moved back in 2008 over to Ellesmere and have the privilege of working for Shropshire Wildlife Trust, which is looking after all the wildlife in our wonderful county. Shropshire is the second largest inland county in the country, 3,487 square kilometres of it, and one of the most rural and sparsely populated counties in England. And we've got a bit of everything, habitat-wise, apart from seashores and salt marshes and that sort of thing. But we're an inland county. We've got a bit of everything else. It's largely to do with the geology of the county. Shropshire is unique in Britain. It has evidence from as many as 11 of the 13 recognised geological periods. And this gives us a tremendous variety of hard geology, which of course affects the habitats that are developing on top of it. So we've got all that wonderful different rocks underneath us. We've got the drifts from the glaciations. So we are a tremendously varied, fantastic county. When you live somewhere like this, you really do start to think locally. Access to nature is incredibly important. I think we all found out that when we had the shutdowns with the pandemic and everything, and we were exploring the countryside around us rather than going further afield. So this is about relishing what we have in Shropshire, what's on our doorsteps, and looking after what's on our doorsteps. Personally, I love Shropshire. It's somewhere I've always come back to. The countryside of Shropshire has been totally formative in my life, and I just love it. And even now, I don't feel I've seen enough of it. Next year, because of all the restrictions and holiday problems and this sort of thing, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the camping gear and I'm going to spend a week right down in the south of Shropshire and explore all the places there that I haven't seen yet, because there's still loads of places I haven't seen. And I'm going to really, really enjoy Shropshire. The Wildlife Trust have over 40 reserves in the county, and there's some fantastic places to go to. So let's just have a look at some of them. Woodland is a fabulous habitat. I adore a proper mixed woodland with all that understory and everything. This is Clunton Coppice down in the southwest of the county. 57 acres of oak woodland, so around 57 acres. And it's absolutely beautiful. In the springtime, there's the bluebells, there's the green light coming through the new leaves, there's all the singing warblers and pied flycatchers and all these sort of things. And of course, it's fabulous for all sorts of other wildlife. This is another bit of it with hornbeams. So tremendous variety there. And it was the first place in England for over 400 years that we had pine martens. So this is the first photograph of a pine marten taken in England. Lots of other wildlife there. There's goshawks, there's all the insects and things that live in woodlands, there's fungi, there's all the ancient woodland flora and everything associated with it. So fabulous place to go to. We've got other woodlands. This is Muir Woods. This is in the Austral Hills. So this one is on limestone. Limestone woodlands, slightly different character. You get them on Wenlock Edge as well. That's a good place to look if you're further down in the county. Beautiful woodland. Again, it's ancient woodland. It's oak woodland with ashes and all sorts of things in it as well. It's mixed woodland. It's got the ancient woodland ground flora, like the bluebells and all this sort of thing. And it was restored after clear felling. Isn't that wonderful? The ancient woodland flora was held in the soil. And when all the trees were gone, it was still there, just waiting for a chance. And we can give these places a chance. Other woodlands we've got, places like Hope Valley, which is 46 acres of oak woodland, and it was restored again after felling and conifer planting. So the Wildlife Trust do an awful lot to restore and rejuvenate these lost bits of habitat. Hope Valley, famous for its population of dormice. What fabulous little creatures. And even if I never see one, when I walk through Hope Valley, I know they're there. Just sharing the space with them is fabulous. Other woodlands like the Earl's Hill, which is the Trust's first reserve. There's about 114 acres of it, with a variety of habitats. So there's this fabulous woodland, and there's also open areas with meadowland that have yellow meadow ant hills, which have their own little sort of micro environment on the top of them because they're raised up and they get a bit warmer, and really beautiful flora there. The Arkle, which is another ancient woodland site, and which also has those fabulous geological exposures which show the earliest beginnings of life on the planet, which 500 million years ago. You can see it in this huge exposure in the Arkle. Lovely, lovely place to go. All these woodlands, they're full of life. They're full of tree creepers and warblers and woodland butterflies and all that wonderful fungi, and just absolutely wonderful places to be. Here's one that's a bit different. This is Lurkenhope. This is another of our reserves, about 15 acres of this one, and it's on a steep hillside right down in Knighton. And this is rather strange, deformed looking oak trees. They look like something from Middle Earth in Tolkien, don't they? And it's a truly magical place to go, because not only has it got these wonderful oak trees, it's also got 35 different species of moss. It's got loads of lichens. It's got old charcoal hearths. And the Trust are looking after this one by removing the western hemlocks that have been planted there to restore it to its proper flora. So some of our woodlands, nothing beats a woodland really, but there's a lot of places that come awfully close. We have Upland Heath. Upland Heath is what you can imagine, so you think of as moorland, and it's got the heathers, and a bit lower down there'll be some bracken and all sorts of things. This is on the Stiper Stones, and this is Nipstone Rock. And the Stiper Stones is a wonderful landscape of this fabulous upland heath. Other reserves there, we have the hollies. This is an area of ancient, really ancient holly trees, all gnarled and twisted and fabulous, and looked after for nature now, but once they were a vital part of the economy. And the cottagers who lived on the Stiper Stones and worked in the mining, and they had some stock and this sort of thing, used the holly trees to provide winter fodder for their cattle and their sheep. You cut down the higher branches, and they're very good, very nutritious feed for the stock during the winter. Wonderful, wonderful sight. And this is just another aspect of that fabulous landscape on the Stiper Stones. Get creatures there like emperor moths. These are absolutely beautiful looking things, Bilbrey Bumblebees, what a perfect creature. These are the ones with the big red bum, yellow bands on the thorax, and this a bright red bum. And these are lovely things that can't survive without that particular habitat. So if we lose the habitat, we lose the species. These are the bilberries that it lives on. Very tasty they are too. Of course, it only wants them when they're flowering. But that particular habitat is the place to find these things. Different heathers grow there. Again, an important nectar source. Other things you might, lots of reptiles there. Things that won't survive in a growing in an agricultural landscape. Other upland heaths we've got on the Clee Hills, we've got Cath Common, which is around 537 acres. Again, lovely big area. And you get the heathland birds. This is a nesting merlin. You get wheatears, ring ouzels, all sorts of lizards, snakes, insects that are associated with the wetter parts of it include things like the keel skimmer, a rare dragonfly, and the golden ringed dragonfly, usually a more northern species. And these are thriving in Shropshire because the habitat is right. And the habitat's right because the elevation's right. If we were all flat and lowland, we wouldn't have these fabulous upland heaths. So that's part of the variety. And it's part of the joy, is we see different things in different bits of the county and at different elevations in the county. So everything is relying on, if you like, the contours, the hard landscape, and each little bit of it is shared between a great variety of very specialist species. We have Lowland Heath. This is becoming a very rare habitat. This is Priestheath Common, which is not a Shropshire Wildlife Trust reserve, but Shropshire Wildlife Trust doesn't just have land for itself, it helps to secure these places which can be managed for specific purposes by people who perhaps know the species there better. So this was managed by Butterfly Conservation, specifically for the silver-studded blue butterflies. It's the only place in the West Midlands you'll see these absolutely fabulous little blue butterflies. And if you're there when they're all emerging and they're all flying around you, it's like being in some sort of wonderland. It's also got lots of lizards, it's got snakes, it's got all sorts of invertebrates, those wonderful running beetles, the ground beetles and the tiger beetles. It's got pools that have the newts in them, and it's a truly magical place. And when you think that it used to be an airfield during the war, it's been restored, it's been looked after, it's been nurtured, just so these fabulous little butterflies and all the things that live with them have somewhere to be. Lowland raised bog, another fabulous habitat, again increasingly uncommon. It's one of the most endangered habitats in the UK. And in Shropshire we have the Fens, Wixall, Bettisfield, Wem and Cadney mosses, NNR. And it's just over 2,500 acres of fantastic habitat. Shropshire Wildlife Trust look after our own little bit of it, which is at Wem Moss, and it's full of this fabulous cotton grass. It has all 4 species of sundew that you can find in the country. This is the round-leafed one with a bit of cranberry in the background. Other insectivorous plants like butterworts, like this one, bladderworts that grow in the water with those fabulous little bladders that open up and the insect gets sucked in. These are strange things, and things worth seeing, worth knowing about, worth looking for, and it makes a walk out an adventure for you, for your children, I mean, if you've never seen one before, an insect-eating plant has to be very, very exciting. Of course, they need to eat the insects because they're not getting the nitrogen from the soil, but knowing the biology of them makes them no less more magical. The mosses also support an incredible range of insects that are particularly adapted to those habitats, like white-faced darters is one of the, again, very rare creature, more of an upland creature, but it thrives here on the mosses. And the larvae of them have been collected from Fens and Waxel moss and moved to a site where they were lost in Delamere Forest and reintroduced there. So not only do we have these fabulous habitats and creatures, we also have a seed population, if you like, that can help to restore other habitats. Raft spiders, big spiders that walk on the water. Even if you don't like spiders, the idea, I mean, you don't have to go and look at one, just knowing they're there. How good is that? Wetland birds, like hobbies, these are specialists on, they feed on the dragonflies. They're absolutely wonderful. The mosses are a brilliant place for bird watching. The hobbies, you've also got hen harriers, you've got short-eared owls, you've got the waders. It's cuckoos, one of the best places in North Shropshire to hear cuckoos. Absolutely lovely, lovely place. And even though it's run by English Nature, Shropshire Wildlife Trust have a lot of input in what's going on. We're partners in the Bog Life Partnership, trying to not only look after the moss, but also encourage people to visit it, encourage people to learn about it, and to appreciate it. And one of our recent things is we built the Mammoth Tower, which gives you an elevated viewing platform, and you get the most fantastic view from up there. It's just off the canal. It's an easy walk to get to it, and what a lovely place to go for a day out. And the winter's a really good time to do it. The view from there is just fantastic. This is during the summer. You get the cotton grass and things, but you do get such an impression of wilderness, even right in the middle of Shropshire. And when it's a bit more dried off in the winter, it looks like a completely desolate landscape, and you can really feel the atmosphere of the place. I think it's absolutely great. Of course, the lowland raised bog doesn't survive on its own. The wetlands around it are really important as well. And this is known as the lag. And looking after that is just as important as looking after the moss, because without the lag, the moss is more prone to drying out, and then you lose the moss character, the moss vegetation. So the lag is very important. This is Charles Singer's Fields, which is the flooded fields just by Morris's Bridge. And we've done a lot of work there recently to make sure that they stay flooded, they don't dry out too much, but the management of them is ongoing. And you've got this wonderful wetland landscape that is not like the moss, because it hasn't got the sphagnum moss and this sort of thing, but it's equally valuable. It's holding the water into the moss. It's more nutrient rich, so you have a completely different feel to it and a different set of creatures living there. It's fabulous for waterfowl. At the moment, it's the winter wildfowl are in. You've got things like teal, pintail, shovelers, all sorts of ducks and geese. Also the waders, like the lapwings, and the curlews absolutely love it around there. There's lots to eat in the flooded grasslands, and even get things like spoonbills turning up there. Because around the fields you've got wonderful natural habitat. Harvest mice have been found there. Good environment for water voles, water shrews, and even a nationally scarce sedge fly. This is what grows out of a caddis, and it's only found in 3 locations in Britain. Maybe hasn't been looked for enough, perhaps, but it's a rare creature, and these survive in the lag. And of course, the other thing you can see there this time of year is the starling murmurations. They like the reed beds to settle in for the night, and as dusk falls, you get these wonderful flocks of starlings all coming together and swirling around in the sky, making those wonderful sky dancing patterns. And what a great place to see them from. We have other sorts of wetlands too. This is Wood Lane, which is the flooded gravel pits, and Tudor Griffiths that owns them allows Shropshire Wildlife Trust to manage them as a wildlife reserve. Absolutely wonderful place for bird watching. Lovely orchids there. These are marsh orchids. The reed beds that you get the reed warblers singing in the summer. All sorts of things to see there. We have hides there you get for bird watching, and I like to go about May time. You get to see the spawning carp, which is quite exciting in its own right. So lots and lots of good all over the county as well, in places like Pam's Pools. Again, wonderful ponds. You can see on the wildlife from around the edges of the ponds. Probably best visited on one of the organised open days. Another kind of wetland. Makes it sound like the county's terribly wet, doesn't it? But when you think of all that upland area as well. This is Sweeney Fen, and this is an unusual habitat for Shropshire. This is Calcareous Fenn, and this one's up in the Austral Hills, and there's 2.7 acres of it, and it's where the base-rich water, so it's alkali rather than acid, so quite unlike the mosses, this is base-rich water which seeps out of the limestone bedrock into the peat. So you've got a completely different set of conditions, and again, that variety I was talking about. The site's extremely diverse and connected to Tryffonon marshes, and it's the best example of this fen habitat in the Midlands. The vegetation, it's dominated by blunt-flowered rush with things like marsh helleborines, these wonderful marsh fragrant orchids on the right here, and globe flowers. And these are upland, usually from much further north, unusual, rare plants in Shropshire, found only in a handful of sites in the county. Looking after them is incredibly important. Having little gems like this in the countryside, what a place to go and visit. And it's there. You can go and visit it for nothing. More widespread species on the site include things like marsh marigolds and bog beans and meadow sweet and wild angelica, ragged robin, this sort of thing. Absolutely wonderful floral banquet to go and visit during the summer. Because the limestone outcrops and higher ground gives us wonderful limestone grassland. The Austral Hills are brilliant places to see it. There's a lot of quarrying gone on there, makes these wonderful exposures. We've got Llanmonach rocks. These are great places for looking for orchids. The orchids that particularly like the limestone, the base-rich, the alkali soils. Huncless Common, absolutely fabulous place. Got Dolgoch Quarry, wooded Craig Sugton, Jones's Rough. The quarry sites have wonderful screes in them. But the bits of rock have fallen down the faces or been left there after the quarrying was finished. And you get orchids growing, bee orchids, you get helleborines, you get rock roses, and of course they're fabulous places for butterflies as well. These wonderful flowers, you get wonderful butterflies. And the woodland there supports a lot of violets, which are the food plant for the caterpillars of some of the fritillaries, and it's a small pearl bordered fritillary, and they're reliant on having these particular habitats. They're uncommon in Shropshire. They're threatened. We need to look after them. So Cluncless Common now has a violet trail marked around it, so you can follow the trail around and see these butterflies when they're emerging, looking for mates, flying around, looking for places to lay their eggs. What a fabulous thing to do. Ancient meadows. It's another habitat. 98% of our traditional hay meadows have been lost since the 1950s. So this is becoming a very scarce habitat. This one's button oak, which is around 3 acres. We also have Melville Meadows up towards Whitchurch, which is about 47 acres. And they're traditionally managed in the way that hay meadows would have been, to look after that particular flora of hay meadow flowers. Without people like us looking after these ancient meadows, they would be ploughed out. They've been sown with ryegrass that can be cut for silage. The management is incredibly important. These are cut once a year when the grass is, is about maybe July, August time, when the grass is good and can be made into hay. And after that, stock are allowed onto the pastures, which break the turf and allow all those little flowers to seed properly. And some of the things we have there, we've a hay rattle, which is one of the important flowers for hay meadow, but also meadow vetchling, common and heath spotted orchids, devil's bit scabies, bird's foot trefoil, eyebright, betony, all these sort of meadow specialists. These are things that don't exist in other places. Pig nuts, sneezewort, wonderful names, aren't they? And it makes a wonderful place to go for a walk and just have a look around and see the tremendous variety. Lots of wildlife users, of course, the badgers, hares, barn owls, partridges, all sorts of things living in amongst it, and all those invertebrates too. So this is an absolutely vital habitat which could so easily be lost. Just the wrong bit of management for a couple of years and it's gone. Fabulous fungi there as well. The waxcap grassland fungi, and this down on the right here is a chicken of the woods, which is funny to find it in the middle of a meadow, really. But there's because being a traditional meadow, there's a lot of big trees in it too. So we have these wonderful oak trees. We've got big thick hedges, and they're all supporting a huge amount of life. Because it's not all what we think of natural landscape. I mean, all landscape is like that because it's looked after in some way. But some of them are reclaimed from industrial processes. So brownfield, post-industrial sites, very important. This is Lightmoor. The reserve there is 49 acres of reclaimed post-industrial waste heaps and this sort of thing, and the Granville Country Park with Moxton Marsh and 58 acres in Telford. These are both Telford sites, and they're good for reptiles. They're good for butterflies that particularly like that sort of area, the dingy skippers and green hair streaks, things like that. Lots of invertebrates. There's flower-rich grass under there. There's ponds there with newts and all sorts of things. But it's not just the wildlife. These are in conurbations. These are places that people live around. So it's a chance for community activity, a chance for public recreation, which of course increasingly known to be good for our mental health and general well-being. These are places we can get out into the greenness. It's a way of looking after the countryside, but also looking after ourselves. So what does the Wildlife Trust do apart from look after all this green space? The education department are very busy. They're working with schools, encouraging, training the teachers to teach the children environmental stuff, wildlife stuff, nature stuff. What we used to think of as going on a nature walk when I was at school and going around Dot Hill. But of course that it all dropped out rather, and we're bringing it back. They work on with the schools on the John Muir Award, which is an environmental award scheme focusing on wild places. It's inclusive, accessible, non-competitive, challenges each participant on the encouraging awareness, responsibility for the natural environment. It's a structured, adaptable scheme, and it gets the kids out there. And again, they're having fun, they're having adventures, they're exploring. We also help the schools to improve their school environment, school grounds. So the children are increasingly surrounded by wildlife, surrounded by nature in their school years. And of course, catch them then, it'll stay with them for life, like it did with me. We have landscape scale projects. The Back to Purple vision, which has been running over 20 years now, looking after the restoration and protection of natural habitats on the cypress stones. It's one of our most cherished projects. It'd be over 20 years ago, half of this had conifer plantations, and restoring it to heather heathland, large continuities of heather heathland, is incredibly important. And once this is an emperor moth caterpillar, feeds on heather, and once one of these can walk right along the cypress stones from one end to the other, we'll have done our job. Isn't it a great looking thing though? We've just acquired a bit more land up there on the cypress stones. This is Tankerville, and it's about 12 acres of small fields that have recently been bought with an appeal to members and to the population to contribute to being able to buy this land. And this is another step in making that dream come true. Landscape scale stuff is so important for the connectivity. Without connection, nothing has room to expand, to move on, to react to climate change, and to keep the populations healthy and genetically diverse enough to survive. So not just looking after little patches, looking after whole landscapes, advising farmers so they can manage their land to connect with the reserves up, so creatures can move from one to the other. Because we've now got the Nature Recovery Network groundwork going on. All the branches are actively involved in surveying what's there now, so that the government policy which has come into to recreate and establish nature recovery networks, so we know where to put the networks, if you like. So we know the potential for joining things up. island populations don't survive well. One thing happens to them, they can be completely wiped out. If they have somewhere to move to, somewhere to go to, they've got a lot more chance. So this is important stuff. This is important stuff for our children, grandchildren, next generation, generation after that. Without doing something, we're going to have lost so much. Lovely view from Tankerville here. You can see how much landscape is there, how much potential there is for everything to connect up. Our Land and Water team do some great work looking after the catchment of the Severn, streams that run into it. The aquatic environment, of course, is particularly threatened by industrial farming, chemical farming. The team work with farmers to avoid pollution of the rivers, and also to prevent flooding downstream by slowing the flow. You've heard that. Lots and lots of work being done to help landowners in the catchment to look after the water, because without the water, we're absolutely nothing. Fabulous, healthy population of river creatures shows us, or will show us, that it's working, because there's a lot of outcry at the moment about sewage outflow into the river, and really pressure from people like the Wildlife Trust is only going to help to push the water boards into doing something about it. So everybody's voice is important. We have events. We have to engage people with wildlife, reconnect them to wildlife. People enjoy coming out on these things like the fungi forays, out in the countryside, and it gives them a chance to explore in a guided way. It teaches them something about it. If you don't know it, you don't love it. If you don't love it, you don't look after it. So getting as many people engaged with nature as possible is one of our main aims. We have other things, other events going on, like this was wreath making last year, and it's an indoor thing. Anybody can do it at any age, but it makes you think. And while you're doing it, you get a bit of information about how holly was used by those Cypress farmers. Remember, about why evergreens are important at this time of year, and the mythology behind it, how they live, why they live, all sorts of stuff. So bits of information. And if everybody goes away remembering one or two little things about it, they'll look at a holly tree in a different way. They'll look at a Christmas decoration in a different way. So these are ways to reconnect people to wildlife without lecturing to them. It's fun. It's a good thing to do. It makes you feel happy. You go away with something you've made, something you've done, and just a couple of little things maybe in your brain that are connecting you just that little bit more to nature. Our volunteers do all sorts of stuff. This is the reserve at Comley Quarry, which primarily for its geology, really, but people working there, people getting out and having a nice day out in company with like-minded people, helping us to look after the reserves. Hedge laying here, okay, fabulous thing to do. And even doing a bit of gardening in the headquarters wildlife garden here. Our volunteers do so much, it's so important to us, and add so much to what the trust can do. So that's been a lot of stuff about what the trust does, what you can help the trust do just by being members or joining. But how about something about what the trust can do for you? And this is just a little story, and this is Josie. And Josie is a young lady who has been coming to events for some time now, since she was young enough to be making fairy houses in the woods, really. And Josie, because she enjoyed my events so much, her ambition was to come and help. She counted down the days to her 13th birthday when she would be old enough to volunteer for us. And on her 13th birthday, she did that. She volunteered. And she said, right, I'm going to come and help you with your events. And Josie and Kelda, her mum, come and help on my events. And they joined up at one of my events, maybe about 4 years ago, something like that. And since then, they've been out, they've explored loads of our reserves. They're really into wildlife. They've learned a lot about wildlife. And here is Josie as one of my volunteers at a recent event, and she's having a good time. It's made her more confident. She's brilliant. She has brilliant ideas. She's fabulous at talking to the younger children, and she's getting a lot out of it. It's not just she's helping me a lot because she is absolutely brilliant, but also it's helping her. It's helping her develop as a young woman. It's helping her confidence. It's helping her in school, and it's even if she decides she doesn't want a career in anything like this, it's a good thing for her CV, for college applications when she's old enough for that sort of thing. So it's really, she's helped us, but it's helped her as well. And here we all are at Bash Church earlier this year with our stall there, and having a good time, and also helping other people understand a bit about wildlife. So if you're inspired by all that, or you know somebody, maybe like a younger Josie, one of the really good things you can do is give a membership pack as a gift to somebody maybe in your family or a friend this Christmas, because it's one of those what's not to like things. As you can see, it's simple to wrap up, doesn't take up any space, there's no calories in it, you don't have to dust it, hasn't got any batteries, doesn't make bleeping noises, it's unbreakable, and it goes on giving all year. So gift membership is a wonderful way of saying, not only I love you, but I love Shropshire. I know you love Shropshire too. This is a gift for all of us. It's a gift for the whole county, and it's also a gift for that particular family. So have a think about it. It's one of the things that could make such a difference to a family, to a young person's life. And if you haven't got a family that you think you can give it to, give yourself a gift. We all need a bit of a boost sometimes, don't we? Give yourself something. If you're not a member already, there we are, Christmas present for you. Join the Wildlife Trust. Help all that fabulous variety of Shropshire still be there for the next generation, generation after that, generation after that. Give something back to Shropshire, but also give it for yourself. Think how much you could enjoy it. Thank you.